Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Bob and this is my Dungeon Master's Guide series to Descent into Avernus. Now today we're going to be taking a brief break from reviewing the encounters in the book and talk big picture. This is the one you've all been waiting for. We're going to dive into the Avernus chapter, Chapter 3. The book really does a fantastic job of setting up this dramatic story filled with excitement and adventure. However, it really does a poor job of laying out a fulfilling and motivating structure for your characters, and as for DMs, it can be hard to follow. Furthermore, your players probably have high expectations for this chapter. The title of the book is called Descent into Avernus, so of course you're going to want to hit this one out of the park. Well, I'm here to hopefully ease your mind and guide you through this kind of daunting process, and hope that you can present the best game possible to your players. Let's start by reviewing the overall story structure of the chapter laid out in the book. As the characters descend into Avernus from Elturel, they find Fort Knucklebone. This location is a fortress of sorts run by a night hag called Mad Maggie. Lulu wants to head to this fort because some memories of her past returned during this encounter with the Helm of Torm's Sight. Lulu knows the only way to stop Zariel is to retrieve her sword. She recalls that there's a Kenku who lived at the fort who helped her escape Avernus, but that's really all she has to go on. We'll discuss more about Mad Maggie when I go over the Fort Knucklebone video, but for now just know that Maggie is a hag who has a deal with Zariel in place to basically give her freedom from Zariel's rule or interruption, so long as she keeps the warlords of Avernus in check. Therefore, the fort is a safe haven and could in theory become a base of operations or a hideout for the group. Next, the Kenku in question are actually a pair of Kenku called Chukka and Clonk. They recall helping Lulu, but they don't know much more about what happened to her before their meeting. They suggest that Maggie can help. Once the PCs involve Maggie, she can suggest the heroes join her in a ritual called a Dream Quest. This pseudo-hypnosis can help Lulu recover her memories and help locate the Sword of Zariel. The group goes through with this dream ritual and sees glimpses of her memories. Lulu recalls the location of the hidden sword, and that it's located in a place called the Bleeding Citadel. This is a massive scab that formed over a church structure to conceal the sword. Afterwards, the party bids Maggie and her crew farewell and heads off to the Citadel following Lulu. All seems well, except Lulu doesn't know actually how to get there. She then leads the party on a wild goose chase next to the location Harriman's Hill. Here, the party meets Harriman, a former Hell Rider and general to Zariel. They fight Harriman, and during the battle, Lulu is kidnapped by Hell Wasps, giant bees from Hell. The party follows the wasps as fast as they can to their nest. They free Lulu, but essentially are at the same place they were, in terms of the story, when they were at Maggie's. Lulu offers the idea of finding places to help jog her memory even more. To be honest, though, at this point, Lulu's jogged a whole marathon full of memories, and I don't think she's going to end up finding this location anytime soon, or at least that's what I would think if I was a player. And now she gives the group two options, two random places to go to with no leads or background. I don't know about you, but I don't think the PCs will probably follow Lulu's direction, and then they're going to have to decide what they want to do from here. And that's fine if you want them to just go wandering through Avernus and just hit random locations, but that's not how the book intended it to be. Either way, following the book, the group can now take two separate paths or storylines which have a progression and flow chart in the book. There's the path of the devils and the path of the demons. Look at the graphics while I continue to describe them. The book does suggest that these are just options to get your party to the Citadel, and both end up getting you there in the end. All roads sometimes do lead to the same spot, except there isn't any other direction given to the Dungeon Master about how to structure something like that. Also, there are a lot of cool encounters in the book, but not all of them are great. Essentially, you cut out half of these encounters by doing it this way. For example, the Crypt of the Hell Riders, in my opinion, is one of the most important encounters in the book. Not only is it really cool and thematic, but it also gives a lot of exposition and gives the players a bit of insight into who Zariel actually was. But if you were to go Path of the Devils, then you would lose out on this one. Finally, each of the path locations connect via fetch quests. This ultimately gets you to string along a few encounters that are complex, with some simpler ones. Just to add to the plethora of encounters on each path, the book goes over a host of optional encounters and locations that could be used to steer a party back onto their path, or it could also be used to simply fill out the campaign. Almost all of these encounters are completely optional and add little to the story or enjoyment of the campaign. The Wandering Emporium, however, is excellent, and I think that needs to go into everyone's campaign. Once your party goes through one of the paths, Lulu recovers enough memories to find the Citadel, and then the group heads to the next chapter. At this point, they should be 11th level. Alright, now there are so many problems with the way that the book presents this chapter. In concept, this is a fantastic point in the campaign, but I cannot see a way that the DM would look at this and be able to run through it as written. It leaves so much of the story to chance in the eyes of the characters, but at the same way, it feels very railroady and unsatisfying. Not to mention, as they go from place to place, the characters are basically going to be treating every location here in Avernus pretty much like any other setting would be, just reskinned to have devils and demons as NPCs, which is not what I think the book intended. So now I'll try to break down the chapter and show you how I outline this one for my players. After looking at the encounters, I realized that some of them were interesting, but most had very little to do with the actual plot and story of the book. So I had to ask myself some questions. What type of information is given at each location? Are there any encounters that further develop Zariel and the fallen hero that gave depth to that character? I knew I wanted those encounters in my game. Additionally, Zariel is the ruler of Avernus, and there are a lot of beings who would want that position. So any encounter that involved around devil politics or intrigue was also going to be in the mix. That includes these locations: the Mirror of Mephistar, Crypt of the Hell Riders, Demon Zapper, Bel's Forge, Kostichi's Maw, and Haramon's Hill. I knew all these encounters were not ultimately going to fit into the campaign. It also depends on what the party decides to do, because that could dictate which of these events gets in, but I knew I wanted them to at least be options for the players, things that I would be willing to present. Then I said to myself, which of these encounters intrigues me most from what remains? If they included a cool puzzle or a trap or an interesting hook, then those are things that I was looking forward to. These secondary locations include the Tower of Urm, Archon, the Cruel Encounters, the Obelisk, Bone Brambles, and the Wasp's Nest. Toss in the Emporium because I believe that is a necessity to give the PCs a break and gain access to items and equipment. All the other encounters to me were basically filler, and some were better than others. All of them have a purpose, but I knew that I needed to be selective if I wanted to include only the best. Again, the key here is I'm only running encounters that I enjoy running, that I'm going to be enthusiastic about. If there's something in the book that I'm not crazy about, it's going to be shown that way to the players, so I don't want to include any of those if I'm not thrilled about them. Once you have your encounters that you like and are happy running, now you thread them together. I figured that once Lulu ran the party in circles fighting Haramon, I would need to give them a new guide. I saw Mordenkainen or Red Ruth as that person. I will say that while my party was in Avernus, I did run into a DM's Guild resource from a company called Eventier Games that was really well done, really well thought out, and I think it actually had kind of like what I anticipated for my campaign in mind, which is that some of these paths don't really make too much sense, and I want to rework this more to be like a sandbox rather than characters just picking one linear path. Now, this is not an advertisement. They have not asked me to promote this or anything like that. I just want to showcase good work when I see it. I'll leave a link down below in the description so that if you want to go and check out their work, then you can go and purchase it. But I did draw inspiration from it, and I kind of wish I found it earlier, but I was pleased with the way everything turned out in my own campaign anyway. Basically, the guide suggests having the party meet intermediaries that can guide the PCs to the Citadel. Find someone who wants you to do a task, and then they will give you the information you're looking for. Similarly, I was doing just that, but getting ideas for connecting these locations did help me out. The way that I did this was I took the friendly NPCs. You have Mordenkainen in the Tower of Urm, and you have Red Ruth in the Bone Brambles. These are neutral NPCs. Neither have a beef with Zariel, and neither would be opposed to helping the party. Archon the Cruel, Bel, Kostichi, and Mephistopheles all want to take out Zariel for some reason or another, so I want these encounters to be available to provide a complication. Make them meet at least one or two NPCs to give the PCs an ally who hate Zariel. This could come back around in the final showdown. In order for the ally Mordenkainen or Red Ruth to divine where the scarab is, they need a powerful ingredient. The Eventier guide suggests blood of a powerful creature, but I would have been fine with anything. An artifact, a body part, something similar will do the trick. I would even include a bit of Zariel's blood if they can get it. Maybe even give them an early encounter with her to tease the finale. Now this path leaves you a few options for where to lead your players. There are many powerful creatures and artifacts located here in Avernus. I would say sending them to the Pit of Shumrath, Arches of Ulak, Tiamat's Prison, or the Sibriax would be good enough. I also changed a creature at the obelisk to a Baldur because my party was rather large, and this actually was surprisingly easy to take out. There are obviously creatures here with a high CR that could be used as part of the ritual. Either their gear, blood, body parts, etc. And all along the path they come across complications and with your favorite lesser encounters. Take a look at this graphic for how my players went about their journey. Now stringing these together may seem tedious and like a railroad itself, but if you give them options at every step, then it shouldn't. At first, Maggie can point them in the right direction. When they get their ally, Red Ruth or Morty, that will give them some suggestions about where these powerful creatures are located. After getting the information and they know the location of the sword, the ally or Lulu will suggest that they see Olanthius before continuing. Knowing your enemy is important, and finding Olanthius should open their eyes to the truth. I think that the crypt is essential and at all costs should be directly proposed to the group. Or you can just say that the ally knows that Olanthius has the information in his crypt. In fact, the ritual guided that ally. Maybe Olanthius isn't all evil and wants Zariel to be redeemed too. What I hope you're seeing here is that it's okay to create whatever hooks and threads to tie your adventure together. There isn't a right and wrong path to choose, and setting limitations like a rigid structure of two paths, as per the book, kind of makes you miss out on half of the good encounters. It'll also make the players feel like they have no freedom to choose here. On a side note, something you might want to include is a homebrewed NPC that is a devil that wants to usurp Zariel's power. This could also be Bell or another named NPC, but Bell is pretty intimidating, and if the PCs say no, then what? Bell would just destroy them. So I created Max. Max is a chain devil with lofty goals and aspirations to one day rule Avernus. He is actually secretly loyal to Bell and is a part of his plan to take over Avernus once Zariel is gone. He's rooting for the players to succeed and can meet their players as soon as they come to Avernus. He can offer them soul coins and something to help track the party. I gave them this infernal compass, basically a way to counter the idea that the map is ever-changing. I actually hate the fact that the map is so cool and given with the module, but then not really used because it says that it's unreliable. The compass, when used to navigate, would set the map straight. Now, this is the actual map, and the PCs can use it. You still follow the navigation rules on page 79, or you could just make it easier to get around. This tied Max to the PCs, and he showed up whenever they needed a push or needed their morals tested. Max was always willing to help and give them what they needed in a pinch. However, he wanted their souls ultimately. I used the devil deals from the book to help me with this. I actually ended up getting one of my players' souls by the end of it all. So to summarize, after navigating through Avernus, finding new allies, and conquering all these powerful creatures, the heroes head to the Crypt of the Hell Riders. This really isn't a right or wrong way to do things. I do feel like getting those players through those main storyline encounters is an integral part to a satisfying ending. I dislike the railroad the book presents for many reasons, but if the motivations for the players make sense, you'll always be pushing them in the right direction. Thanks for sticking around and watching this whole video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. If you have any questions about how I went about running this chapter, or you want my advice, please leave your comment down below. I'll see you on the tabletop. Archon the Cruel, Bel, Kostichi, and Mista... Archon the Cruel, Bel, Kostichi, and Mista... Bel, Kostichi, and Mista... Archon the Cruel, Bel, Kostichi, and Mistopheles... Archon the Cruel, Bel, Kostichi... God, I can't say this. Can you hear me?